Hey, what's up? This is Nathan from PH Studios. Welcome back to another tutorial from the Advanced Techniques series. We're continuing that along until we release the tower defense. Okay, last tutorial we discussed the maps, and in this tutorial this is more of a usage guide than a tutorial. So what I'm going to do is we have a screen system that you can download and use. For premium members, you can have access to the system and see the code. For the public users, you only have access to how to use it. So I'll give you the library, the DLL file, and I'll give you a sample project on some sort of stuff that you can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what to do in the your program, your game, to use that ScreenSystem.dll file. And once I release the full version, I will provide a nice documentation on what classes they are in each inside the screen system and what their methods are. How do you call this? What do you do for this situation? How do I create a loading screen, for an example, and that type of stuff. But for now, you just have to use the code I give you and this video as sort of a usage guide. Alright, so just like the space shooter tutorial, just like the paddles tutorial, nothing's changed inside here. We create a new system, we initialize the dimensions of our screen, and we create a new screen system, and then we add it to the component since it's a drawable game component. Then we add the first screen inside the initialize, and then the screen system takes off from there. Alright, so first thing we load is the new PHS logo screen. So anything you load in here should be made inside of your project right here. So you should see a PHS logo screen here. Alright, what this logo screen here, and you can delete this unless you want to put something in here. I left it blank if you want it. What this will do is it will create a new logo screen. It is a derivative of logo screen. So you just make a public class, whatever you want to call it, and drive logo screen. And what this will do is you should use this constructor. I left it the other one if you just wanted to create an empty loading screen. If you don't want to fade it or anything, you can just use that constructor. So you fade it by a certain color and you fade it by a certain percentage. And that will call the base, and then that will do the bases constructor for that. Then we initialize it, and screen time holds how long it will last. You have transition on time, transition off time, and what's in between that is a screen time. I put it as 0, so when it transitions on, it's done, it transitions off right away. If we put it at 10 seconds, it will transition on. That's done, it'll wait 10 seconds, then it will transition off. So we have 3 states. Transition on, screen, transition off. So screen time, if you wanted 10 seconds, you set transition on time to about 1 second, screen time to 0, transition off time to 1 second. It'll last 2 seconds. Removing. I made the screen system as event driven as possible. So for events, you add the event handler, which is called removing. You add a new event handler and add the method name of whatever you want to call whenever the event is called. Load content. You can load content for any screen you create, and right here we're just loading the logo. Unload content, we're going to unload the logo. And removing screen, what we're going to do when the screen's done, we're going to add a new main menu screen. So let me walk you through the project as it's running. So transition on time, 0, transition off time, there we go. And we have a nice menu system that we've seen before in several games. Now, I've enhanced this a little bit, and I'll show you what we did. but I'd like to demonstrate the submenu entries because that's still being worked on. Again, this is beta, so there's still some glitches here and there. But I've added a submenu entry. Whatever called the submenu, in this case submenu entry is what called it, that's what will be in white above. And you'll have menu entries on the back to parent menu. You'll have several others if you want to. Back there, and let's quit the game. Alright, so next is the main menu system, so let me talk about that. Okay, main menu screen. The menu screen operates a little bit differently than pretty much anything you've seen before, basically. I created as open and as abstract input system as I possibly could. And I was trying to think of the best way to call a menu system and how to incorporate that into the input system. Because if you have a menu system like I have here, let's wait for the loading screen to finish. If you have a menu system like you see here, the previous menu will be up, the up key. The next menu will be the down key. However, if you have a menu system that is horizontal, that means play screen is right here where it should, and then right next to it on the right, not below, but on the right, you have submenu entry. So it's horizontal. So in that case, the previous one will be left, and then the next one will be right. So depending on how you set it up, I wanted to create that as object-oriented and as abstract as I possibly could. And the only way I could think of is to provide whenever you drive menu screen, you have to drive the action names. They have to be done. So you create a previous entry, next entry, selected entry, and cancel menu. So you create strings on what you want to call these, because you don't want to return next. You don't want to do this, is because you create a new string every time you call that. So we create a string object here, so we just return that object. It's also being concerned with garbage collection. You don't want to return a new string every single time you call this. You just don't want to return this object. So that's what I did there. So that's what we're doing in the constructor here, is we're setting up the action names. Menu up, menu down, menu accept, and menu cancel. Now, you can name these whatever you want. That's the beauty of the input system, which I'll get to later. Main menu entry, I'll get to that in a few minutes after this class. Allow transitions. You want this menu system to transition on, and you want it to transition off. There was a glitch in there with the old version of the screen system where transition off did not matter. It just wasn't being accounted for. On the transition off method, I had it as using transition on. So it didn't use transition off at all. And the colors you want the text to be. What you want it to be when it's selected, what you want it to be when it's highlighted, and what you want it to be when it's normal. And let me demonstrate that. I think my mic's a little off center here. So I'm highlighting it. That is green. When I select it, it's going to be yellow. When I select it, it's going to be yellow. That's better to demonstrate than fading away. So submenu entry is selected. So it's yellow because we're activating the submenu entry. So we go back, and you saw there, this screen is faded, and then the submenu is faded. So you get multiple levels of fade whenever you do that. So you can fade it by different colors if you want. You can disable that too. Let me quit the game here. So normal is white, highlighted is green, and selected is yellow. Okay, hopefully that's a better angle for the microphone. Okay, now let me talk about the input system usage here. Since you can't see the code, I will just tell you the usage. And again, when the full version is released, there will be a nice documentation in text format, and I'll also show you the code in video format as well. So we'll get a reference from it. And the reference is always in the screen system. The screen system handles the updating it as well. So every time the screen system gets updated, the input system gets updated first thing. So we get a reference to that. Then we add new actions. And what these actions are, you can have multiple overloads. There's 3 overloads. The one I'm using now is a string action and a keys K. So I set it keys up, keys down, keys enter, and keys escape. And you select the string you want by the previous entry name like we have here. And all those names we did up here, they're going into the input map. We're mapping them to those key prices. And I did this with the dictionary, so all I have to do is look up the string and then I get the keys, I get the button, I get any input. You can have keys, you can have gamepad, and you can have a mouse too. I'll mention that when the full version is released. Okay. So now the menu entries. We've seen this before, so I don't have to walk you through this that much. We just make a new main menu entry, and we pass it this and the what we want to label it. Then we do the same thing for all the others. Another event, we remove the we're removing the screen, we're entering the screen, and we're exiting the screen. And then we select the menu entries. For the submenu, we add a submenu. We add another class, another object of a class called test submenu. So you have to create a submenu, and you add it to the submenu entry. Instead of selected, it's .add submenu. Okay. And that's being taken care of in the menu screen class. So when it activates when you press enter on an object, on a menu entry object, it'll select it. But if it'll say, does this have a submenu? Yes. If it does, activate that submenu. It does not? Okay, go to the selected event. Go to this event here. Then we just add them all to the main menu entries list. Okay. We've seen this before too. We have to set the relative position. I added this before in one of the earlier versions in the Space Shooter, I believe. You just set the relative position from whatever menu entry you want. So for the submenu, of course, we want to push down a little bit. Now, we do not have to remember, we do not have to do math saying, alright, 100, 200 is the play. That's the play's position. Okay, now if I want to push it down, I have to add 20 to 100 and get that number. Okay, now for the submenu, I have to set it as 150, 220, for example. No, and that's just too much work, so I set relative position. Okay, so the vector 2 you pass here will be the point. You'll add it to the position of the menu entry passed there. So in this case, we're adding the Y and line spacing +5 in the Y direction from the play's position. And it's true, we set it as a initial position. That's a Boolean. We do the same for intro and quit. But again, for intro, we reference the previous one, and for quit, we reference the previous one. Unload content, we unload the sprite font. We loaded it here. Okay. We're entering the screen. We're getting that transition from left to right. Now let me demonstrate that after the logo screen. After this goes away, you'll see it go left to right. There we go. That's transition on. This is transition off. We're exiting. It's going from right to left. So for this, I overrode the transition event handler, and I created a new event argument called transition event args. and I just labeled that TEA. And what you get from T is the T.percent, the percentage of the transition. And there's one more thing that you can get, which I haven't demonstrated yet, and it will in a later build. And we do the same thing. We just do some math here. We do the same thing for every entry. We just add the acceleration of the effect, and position is initial position plus acceleration. So the effect is a math.power, and we go from that percent of 0 to 1. We're entering, so it's going from 0 to 1. And that's exiting, so we go from 1 to 0. We square it times a scalar value, a correction value, whatever we provide here. You can make it, you can increase it and it'll go faster, you can decrease it and it'll go slower. We select play, we're going to exit the screen, and we're going to add a play screen. We select intro, we're going to exit the screen, and we're going to add a logo screen. You select quit, we're going to exit the screen, and that's it. Removing, we're going to clear the menu entries. Now in a later build I'm going to delete this, since every menu is just going to do this every time it removes. So I'm going to remove this, and it's going to be built into the menu system. But for now, you can see what I do here is whenever the main menu is removing, we clear the menu entries. Okay, so now let's talk about the test submenu. Okay, now this is what I focused on. Or actually, let's not do that yet. Let's talk about the menu entries first. Okay, now this is another thing. The system itself, you cannot really use anything that's in the system. You always have to create a derivative of it. They're all abstract, they're all open, so you just have to create a derivative of it for your needs. Okay, so the menu entries are what handle the effects. When you highlight it and when you do some certain things, that's what handles the effects. Now, animate highlighted, that's the highlighted entry. That's when it's green, you get that pulsating effect. That's done with the class that I just showed, and that's with the handle highlighted, animate highlighted method. So that method is what's responsible when you have a menu entry highlighted. And scale is from the menu entry itself, and you do all that stuff. Update, we set position is equal to new initial position X, initial position Y. Okay, so that's it. There will be more examples of this later on. I'll create several menu entry classes so you can see the differences between them. It's just an early build, and yeah, so give me a little bit more time and I'll get some more examples of this. This is still in the early stages. Okay, now back to the test submenu. This is a way to create the test submenu from the menu screen itself. So it's a derivative of the menu screen, which means you can have a test submenu that's identical to the menu you just had. So if we do a main menu screen, if we main menu screens here, we can actually create a submenu.add submenu new main menu screen. But that will be a lot different because that will just be the same as what we did here. So the submenu will actually have play, submenu, intro, and quit. So for that reason, there's a test submenu class that I made, and that only has a back at the moment. You can create one more if you want. Info. So we have info and back. So now if we set this up parent is equal to parent, and that will take care of the, whenever we are finished, it will automatically unfreeze that parent screen, and it will set that as to the active parent. Okay, so now we have back is equal to new menu entry. Let's have an info It's equal to new main menu entry, this comma, information. Okay, so now there's a push here. This is a little bit more complicated. Let's add it first. So menu entries.add information, info. Okay, so for this one, we have a title of the submenu, so we're going to push it by a certain amount. So we're going to push it by the menu entry's first one. Whichever one we selected, we're going to push it by. Then we're going to set the back position. And we're actually going to be doing a relative since we have a new info first. Info.setPosition. Let's make that the primary. And set back.set relative position. And we just push it down in the Y like we did before. New vector 2 0, comma sprite font dot line spacing +5, comma info, comma true. Okay, so now info is not going to have anything. Info is just going to be duplicating on the back. So I'm just going to demonstrate that. Info plus equals new event handler back underscore selected. It's just going to be a duplication of the back. Okay. Info dot selected. Title submenu and offset title by a certain amount. Alright. So let's see what that will do. So the submenu can be whatever you want to make it. Again, it's just you make another menu screen, but it's going to be a submenu. So we have information and back to parent menu. And then you can push it by a certain amount of your choice. And you can push the submenu entry by a certain amount of your choice as well. So as you see, the information is pushed by the first element of the main menu screen, which is in this case is a play screen, is the first one. So we use that as the initial reference, then we push the information to the right. So the information is on the same line as a play screen. Then back to parent menu is just below and to the right of submenu entry. And then we can push the title a little bit more reasonably if you prefer by setting the offset title. So we can make it to the right if we want to. There you go. Submenu entry is pushed to the right. So these are just a little bit small things that you can do. I have a few more additional screens I'm going to provide, but the ones here are pretty much feature complete. Now I haven't demonstrated all the features yet, but they're pretty much feature complete, and when I get to version 1, I'll have an example for every feature you can think of. Alright, so that's the submenu entry. Again, it's almost exactly the same as the main menu screen, in that you have to drive the menu screen and you have to do all this same stuff. You have to set the previous entry and all that, the names of the actions, what colors you want it to be. Initialize is pretty much the same. You enable the fade if you want to. Now the keys are already mapped from the menu screen, so we do not have to map them again. Now I had a discussion about this, but nobody really was able to give me any form of input about it. Since the input system is global, that's why this is here. Keys are already mapped from the menu screen, so we do not want to map them again. Now my question was, do we keep that, or should we have an input system for every screen we make? So we will have to map them again, but it's just for this screen. Now, if we do that, it should be easier on the performance, so we don't have a giant global, giant list of input. Play. We don't have a fire button when we're in the menu screen. We do not have that mapped in the menu screen. Or we can just map it when we get to the play screen. Whichever one you prefer. That can be a little confusing if you have already them mapped. You have to remember already map them, so they don't need to be mapped, but it's up to you. Okay, so the only difference between this one and the main menu screen is that we push the title. We create a push vector. So we push it by a certain amount. That's really the only difference, and the offset title. Now, you can have a title in the main menu entry. Or main menu screen. I keep on going to the entry. I need to quit that. Close that out. Okay. So let's go to load content and title. Hello. So we have a title in the main menu screen. Let's see if you'll notice it. There it is. Now the title did not move with the menu system. That's really not supposed to. If you wanted to enable it, I guess you could. But I don't think it should. It's a title of the system and it'll be a little confusing. Okay, let's look at the play screen next. Alright, another feature for all game screens is, does this screen accept input? Yes, it does. That way you can have a little info screen. No, it does not display input. Let's look at the PHS logo screen. It does not, it's default by false, so it does not provide any sort of input. Now, I will enable that on the logo screen level. I think in one of the later builds for the premium members, I already did enable that, but if I did not, I will. So it'll be default by true for the logo screen class. Okay. So yes, this does accept input. But like I said, you can set it to false for if it's just like a little information screen. You're running out of health. You have a little pop-up screen here. You're running out of health. Okay. That'll go away in 2 seconds. It does not accept input. Now, this is just a sample play screen, nothing fancy going on here. We just have a transition percent. We're transitioning the screen on and off by doing the entering again. And we're doing the handle input. I'm just demonstrating how to handle input. We pause it. We draw a screen like before. Oh, that's another thing. I mentioned this inside of the post, but you've been familiar with the spacer and paddles and anything else I've made that I've used ScreenSystem before. We had an input system. So where you... we had a screen system. So when we derive a screen, the screen system has update and draw. That's it, update and draw. So we drive update. Okay, we need to get input. The screen needs to update a different way than the other screen. Okay, so how do we call the game screen's update? We have to call base. Now, for some people, they would forget to call that. So what I did is to get rid of that completely. You cannot modify the update method or the draw method at all. They will always be the same for every single class you make. However, the update and draw screen, or the update and draw method, will be called from the game screen, will be called from that class directly. So update screen will be called from the update method, and the draw screen will be called from the draw method. So, for customizing your screen, you call update screen. You override that and you call that. And you do the same thing for draw screen. So that's the customizing of the screen. You do not have to call base anymore. There's no base here. So you don't have to call base anymore. Update's still being taken care of on the game screen level. It's just automatically calling the update screen. So this can operate differently than the menu system does. That's really the only difference in the play screen that I can see. We map the new action as pause and map it as escape. So let's go ahead and pause it. So play screen, and we pause it, which I demonstrated before because this is faded and then this is faded, so we have different levels of fade. And of course you can disable that if you want to. You can have a pause menu. The pause menu I just made as the main menu system. Let's see here, pause. New pause screen. So pause screen is just duplication of the menu system, basically. But I said resume instead of play. So that's the only difference there. Alright, that should be it for the guide. Download this project. It'll be at the bottom of the YouTube video, and it's in the posts already. It's publicly available. You can go to the main website, and it's there too. You can download it, see what to do here, and hopefully you can get a better feel for it before the final release. And like I said before, there will be a giant documentation, how to do this, how to do that, what methods does this class have, what kind of classes does the screen system have in general, how do I create a logo screen, how do I use that logo screen class, how do I create a transition, how do I pulsate a menu entry, that type of thing. I'll do a guide on that as well, a video guide and documentation. And there will be like 2 or 3 more classes and screens that I will make for the system. One of those will be the input screen. I want to create a screen that will ask for text input, like, what is your name? Nathan, enter. Then it will get your name. It will return the name based on the input, and it will do that by doing an event. So that's the idea for that one. Alright, so I believe that's it for this guide. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you again for the next few tutorials. And I hope you're ready to start the tower defense. I will be uploading the teaser video on YouTube. It's already on the main website if you want to check that out. I will be also uploading the maps tutorial 2 for YouTube members. It was released last week for premium, but I'll put it on YouTube this week, and this video should be up whenever I get the time to upload it, which will probably be tomorrow. It's midnight, so it'll be tomorrow, yeah. And then we're going to do a After Effects video, I guess, for tomorrow. And then I'll upload that too. So I hope to see you next time.